a really, really fun technique, and it's really fast. And this is a technique that I've used quite a bit. And the first time I actually saw it, Topher Morrison, I was kidding. Topher Morrison showed it to me the first time I saw it, and I've loved it ever since. And, we're using the ice water. And Carrie, you and I were talking about it. Ice is a painful thing. Cold, not fun. And I was working in the mountains in Austria. And we were doing this. It was a really fun thing. I got to hang out with literally mountain men who had this really great kind of sage wisdom, and get to hang out with them and then, carry heavy stuff up and down a mountain for a couple months. It was a weird job. It was just a summer job I grabbed. And one of the guys who was this unusual mountain man said, there's this lake and this waterfall a mile from my house. And every single day, I run the mile, I get in the lake, and I run back. And we're at 7,000 or 8,000 feet. So in the winter, in the Alps, this is obviously freezing over. He would break the ice, jump in, and run home. And I said, well, that's pretty cold. I was an ocean lifeguard. I experienced some cold water in my day as well. And he said, not like this. And I said, I don't know. Pretty cold. And we kind of had this machismo ego thing that kind of went back and forth. And everybody said, let's see who's tougher. They didn't know I knew hypnosis because I was kind of keeping that to myself. And they said, well, let's just go ahead and have a staring contest in that water. And I said, you bet. We walked down to the water, and I actually went up and I touched the water first. I went, what the hell have I gotten myself into? And this is in the summer, so there's no ice, but it's literally, there's a waterfall coming off a glacier. We're talking cold water. And he said, here's what we're going to do. It's only about, it's about 10 feet deep at its deepest, but by the waterfall and it kind of does one of those. So he said, great, we'll just swim over and stand under the waterfall. So we had water from a glacier going right down the back of our neck and shoulders. And the only thing I was worried about was a chunk of ice coming down and hitting me. Because before I got into the water, I used this technique. And then on here, it's called ghost hand. Just as an example, we're going to be using the hand. But basically, as I took off my shirt, I just took off all my association from my body and left it, with my towel on the bank, and just walked into the water and sat down, or kind of crouched down, the waterfall hitting me, and looked right next to him and said, not so bad. And he said, oh, it's pretty comfortable. And I said, it's actually pretty hot in here. And we sat there and we had this beautiful view. It's where they shot The Sound of Music. So just gorgeous rolling hills. And he and I just sat there and watched the sunset in the water for about half an hour. And then people were there watching it. They said, you need to get out now. And he said, oh, I don't need to get out. And he said, oh, I don't need to either. And we had this really pleasant conversation. He was a great guy. And then they said, okay, it's a tie. You're both idiots. Get out of the water. Neither one of you is stupider than both of you. And so we said, okay, it's time to get out. And then we realized neither of us could move. And so we had to, it took a long time to get us out. And the moral of the story is we both got hypothermia, so you shouldn't do this. But the idea is the ease with which you can use this technique with waking hypnosis, having a conversation with a guy, taking in this beautiful sunset, and having absolute comfort. First step to do is to be able to just look at your hand as a hand, just a piece of meat. It has no relationship to you at all. And then what I want you to do is imagine what it would be like if you had sort of, I consider it a ghost hand, sort of the association and the inner workings you have connecting yourself to this, kind of as a ghost kind of raise itself up, leaving this hand there as if it were asking a question in class. As long as your ghost hand, your association with this hand is above your head, you don't feel anything. This is no longer your hand as long as the association's up there. Some people like to look at that ghost hand up in the air. Some people like to have it constantly moving or waving at them, but really, really visualize it. This technique works every single time you keep that hand up there. Okay? I've had some people go through it and they raise their hand after. They said, it didn't quite work until I actually raised my hand to ask you a question, and now it works. Things like that. So make sure it's working for you. Okay? So here's how it works. I can do it at this point with my hand moving around For you guys, it's best to start with your hand actually at rest, okay? So here, we'll actually do it. Actually, the last time I did this technique, in front of a group, I took an Alice clamp to me and accidentally went to the third click instead of the first. And it actually, yeah, it was horrifying to a lot of people in the room. So I'm not going to do that this time because people really got upset. Well, let's just leave this like this. And we'll just use something simple. You know, I'm pinching everybody else, and it's kind of unfair for me to not have to do it myself. So we just take a clip. I look at my arm, and I'm just going to do it here because this is a more sensitive spot, so it's more fun for me. I'm just going to go right here, just as an arm. And I can just take the ghost arm and put it up there. As long as it's up there, get a good grip on some of that, I can just allow that to hang. And it's not about being tough. It's not about being brave. You can do whatever you want here. Actually, the last time we taught this technique, we had the college guys actually took one of each clip and laid it down the arm just to see, oh, it works with this one, does it work with